My 18 times great-grandfather was going to tell the king that his dad died?
Absolutely.
Well, that's a terrible job that he had. Well, I mean, why didn't anybody else? He wasn't there with him?
Well, that's the heart of the mystery. Why is your ancestor, Thomas de Berkeley, the first person to hear about the death of the king? And why should he then dispatch his servant to tell the son of the king would be Edward III,
Did he
the
kill
new
him?
king? Here's Thomas Logan, your 9 times great-grandfather. And we follow the line back generation after generation. When you're doing genealogy, there are certain names that jump out at you. The name that jumped out of me is here.
In Berkeley?
And I say Berkeley, so...
You say what?
Berkeley.
Berkeley?
It's...
Okay, well, I'll call her Berkeley too.
It's one of those names, as a genealogist, when you sort of sit back and think, this is really important now. You are descended from an aristocratic family. Not just any aristocratic family, but one of the most important in the country. I can't stress enough how important this family was. If this was 700 years ago, you'd be just slightly less than a queen.
Oh, really?
So he is the top aristocrat of his time. So he is as big as it gets. If you were at that level of society, you would be expected to attend the royal court on a regular basis. So all the really important stuff happens with you present. So nothing escapes your notice. All the good stuff and all the bad stuff as well. All the scheming, you may well be part of that.
And what do you mean part of the scheming? What kind of scheming would there be?
Well, nothing escaped the attention of people like the Berkeleys. And I think this document really shows that. It's from 1327. This is a scan, it's not the original. Now it is in Latin. This is the receiver's account. And it's money being spent not just on managing the estates, but also day-to-day errands that Thomas would ask his servants, his household staff, to do on his behalf. But there's one particular entry here that is of key importance, and I've got a translation of it for you.
Okay.
And
is this a person, Gorn?
Yeah.
Okay, Gorn going to Nottingham to tell the king and queen of the death of the father of the king, with letters of the Lord.
Now, the Lord in this case is Thomas de Berkeley.
Wait, so this guy, Thomas de Berkeley, my 18 times great-grandfather, was going to tell the king that his dad died?
Absolutely.
Well, that's a terrible job that he had. Well, I mean, why didn't anybody else? He wasn't there with him?
Well, that's the heart of the mystery. Why is your ancestor, Thomas de Berkeley, the first person to hear about the death of the king? And why should he then dispatch his servant to tell the son of the king would be Edward III,
Did he
the
kill
new
him?
king? Berkeley, spelt differently, B-A-R instead of B-E-R, but this is the same place. There's a castle there. This is your ancestral castle. And
Like a castle where there was the moat and those little windows where they could kill people with this?
Yeah, these are impressive buildings.
Is it still around?
It is, and they have records about this time, about the Berkeley family.
I'm on my way to meet a medieval historian at Berkeley Castle, which I'm really excited about because I've never seen a castle before. I also want to get into the archives and see if I can find out why my 18 times great-grandfather knew about the death of the king's father. Hi.
Hello, Courtney.
Hi there.
Welcome to Berkeley Castle,
Thank you.
home of your ancestors.
Yes. Wow.
It's lovely, isn't it?
It's beautiful.
Most of what you're seeing here was built by your 18 times great-grandfather, Thomas de Berkeley.
Oh, built by him.
A lot of this was built by him.
Wow, okay.
This is the Berkeley Arch, which we will go through.
Okay, looks a little scary. I've been told that my 18 times great-grandfather, Thomas Lord Berkeley, had sent a note to the king saying that his father had passed away. And I would love to know more about that.
Well, we have some documents here, which I think will reveal what happened. This is a 700-year-old financial account.
Is this original?
This is original.
Wow.
It's on parchment. This is in Latin, of course, which was the usual written language of the time. This is a list of the expenses in the castle, and it's this bit here that is particularly interesting. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a translation of that
For the Lord's expenses in Berkeley Castle for 22 weeks from the day after All Saints until the 5th of April, which was Palm Sunday this year, on which day the father of the king came at dinner time.
That's correct.
I'm confused. Why isn't the father of the king if he's still alive?
It's very odd indeed, isn't it, in a hereditary monarchy?
Right.
Because the father should be the king. Shall we just look at one other
Yes, please.
manuscript, which will just give us an idea? This is from 1327, and this is the bit that is particularly revealing. And again, we have a translation here.
For bolts, rods, bars, and other ironwork bought for the chamber of the father of the king. So the father of the king was living in a chamber.
In a chamber with
Is that
lots,
like prison?
With lots. He was indeed being kept prisoner here.
He was being kept prisoner by his son?
No, he was actually being kept prisoner by your 18 times great-grandfather. He was the man who was paying for all these locks and bolts and bars to be put on the chamber of the kings.
Okay, let's just back up a second. My 18 times great-grandfather,
Yes.
Thomas Lord Berkeley, is holding the king's father prisoner.
Yes.
Well, this is getting juicy. Okay, tell me more.